Hi guys, the Vocation Rebalance 2026 is upon us. It is released on the 16th of June, and in this video, we'll do a deep dive into the Sorcerer Vocation. That is the Vocation I'm planning to play after the Rebalance. I think it's probably the most fun Vocation, has had like the most fun and positive changes. Probably going to be pretty strong. We'll see how the balancing goes. Anyways, it's going to be a video primarily focusing on solo gameplay. I mean, I'm mostly a solo player myself, but we will touch on a bit of bossing and team hunting as well. In addition to this, the video will be split into two parts. You can find the timestamps down below. The first part of the video will basically be breaking down all of the patch notes relevant to the Sorcerer and just reacting to it, sharing my thoughts. And at the end of the video, we'll do more of a quick breakdown of the builds that I think will be relevant, maybe some gems, some wheels, slightly more detailed insight into the Sorcerer after the Rebalance. So yeah, let's dive in. All right, so let's dive into the patch notes relevant to the Sorcerer. First of all, we've had some rune adjustments. The relevant thing that you want to know about mostly is that Avalanche, GFBs, Thunderstorms, and Stone Showers all have the same base power now, so no longer Thunderstorms and Stone Showers are a little bit weaker. I believe Avalanche and GFBs are a little weaker. Thunderstorms and Stone Showers are a little bit stronger, which puts them at the same base power. At this point, in addition, this explosion rune area has been increased from 5 squares to 9 squares, so it's basically the target plus the 8 squares around them. It's still pretty much meme. I still don't think it's really going to be relevant anywhere. Maybe there'll be like some real niche weak to physical type respawn where you can maybe do it in like a duo or a team hunt. I don't know. I'm not so sure. I think the explosion rune is probably not enough to be relevant. Charm double proc, not relevant for the Sorcerer. Gift of life improvement. This is primarily to help with the buffer mechanic, which we'll get to in a bit. But now basically when you have gift of life, you also recover a set amount of your maximum mana to help you with the buffer mechanic. We've also seen a slight buff to duos and trios in the group EXP bonus. So if you duo or trio, you're going to get slightly more experience. Nothing too major, but just a little bit more competitive. Combat mode removal is not really relevant to the Sorcerer. You don't really need to worry about this one too much. Mitigation adjustments, same really. The main thing to consider is that the gems that provide mitigation multiply are now actually kind of good. They're definitely very good for EKs, paladins, and monks because they have inherently more mitigation. I'm not entirely sure how much mitigation mages will have after the rebalance. So it's going to be worth checking, but bottom line is they are very versatile and pretty good damage reductors, the mitigation gems. Not sure if they're going to be better for sorcerers and druids. I expect HP and elemental gems probably still best, but if you happen to get like a mitigation multiplier lesser gem in your greater gem, then you're probably pretty happy. They are a lot better than they used to be, so that's something to keep in mind as well. Potion management improvements is not really relevant to the sorcerer or druid. The only real difference here for you is between level 100 and level 130. You have a new mana potion called the Superior Mana Potion, so you'll be using that one for those 30 levels before you unlock ultimate mana potions. Other than that, no changes when it comes to the mages. Energy ring adjustment, not relevant. Ultimate and intense healing rune adjustment, this is relevant for team hunt and sorcerers. You can no longer use healing runes, so no longer do you need to be spamming 1000 UHs per hour or however many while you're team hunting, so you're free. So that is a great change. Now, ignoring the impact on balance and stuff, it's a great mechanical improvement that you no longer have to do that. And we have stance quality of lives, not really relevant for the sorcerer because you didn't have any stances before, so you don't really understand what this means. But basically, stances will now persist between sessions instead of resetting to the default like it happened with the monk. So it's a good quality of life change, but you never really experience this anyways. Now let's move on to the sorcerer specific changes. So first of all, we have the stances, and this is probably the biggest and most important change to the sorcerer, and it is amazing. Starting with the promotion, a sorcerer can now switch between 3 elemental stances: flames, thunder, and decay. So as you can imagine, this is fire, energy, and death. And they have some damage bonuses, like fire spells when in fire get 4% increased base power, energy get 4% increased critical hit chance, and death get 30% increased critical extra damage. However, that is not the actual cool, interesting thing. What is very interesting is the second part of each of those. Casting a fire spell converts the next non-fire spell into fire damage, and this works the same for all the 3 stances. So if you cast a fire spell and then cast an energy spell afterwards, if you're in Master of Flames, that energy spell gets converted into a fire spell. What this means is you can have an exclusively entire flame rotation, entire energy rotation, entire death rotation if you so choose. You just need to convert the elements into the best element. And this is an amazing, amazing feature for the viability and versatility of respawns that you can hunt as a sorcerer. You can basically hunt almost everywhere in the game now. One of death, energy, or fire pretty much always works at some spot. There's only a couple of respawns which aren't that good. Places like Fairway, death, energy, and fire doesn't really work there, so you might not be able to hunt Fairway with your spells. You can still hunt it with avalanches, though, so it's still okay. But yeah, basically what this means is that you're likely never going to be using runes because you're always going to have valid spells to use at a respawn, and spells are always much stronger than runes, at least when it comes to the sorcerer. So this is an incredible game changer. This is one of my favorite changes in Tibia ever. This is like really, really good. Now, the power is okay. Like, you can almost kind of ignore it. It's just a little bit more power through it. But like the conversion is excellent. Now, something else that people always ask about this, and I want to clarify, is how do damage modifiers affect those spells? So Tipsoft have clarified that damage modifiers, elemental modifiers, for example, you have a modifier like energy spells have 10% more critical damage. And the question is, does that work on the spells which are converted from a non-energy spell? And the answer is no. Damage modifiers work on the original element of the spell. So if you have energy spells deal 10% extra crit damage as one of your modifiers, either in your proficiency or on your augment, whatever, then your energy spells in Master of Thunder will obviously benefit. So your energy wave and your energy beam will still benefit from those modifiers. But if you're casting, for example, the Great Fire Wave as part of the Master of Thunder rotation, and that Great Fire Wave gets converted to an energy spell, then you do not benefit from that modifier to energy spells. You would benefit to the fire modifiers. So if you had a fire modifier, that would apply to the Great Fire Wave. The Great Fire Wave would then be converted to energy. So you would benefit from the fire modifiers, but all the modifiers apply only to the base element of the spell, the non-converted one. Okay, so very, very worth a mention. I hope that makes sense. And yeah, overall, amazing change. Elemental stances. This is the sole reason why I'm playing the Sorcerer after the rebalance. Moving on. You get two more stances separate from it, so you can have both an elemental stance and a crippling stance active at the same time. These are two stances that replace Sap Strength and Expose Weakness, and yeah, they're basically passive stances that you can switch between. They're unlocked at level 175. You've got the Sap Strength and Expose Weakness, of course, and when you deal damage to an enemy while you have this stance active, that's when you apply it. Okay, so you hit an enemy with your spell while you have Sap Strength active, and they have Sap Strength then. So that's basically how it works. So instead of casting a spell, you now just apply it passively through dealing damage. Again, amazing change, really going to improve the quality of life of sorcerers. Really love this change. Both of those changes are like 10 out of 10. Really happy. Moving on, we have a new spell called Death Echo. This is to enable the Death rotation, the Master of Decay rotation, because, we had the Death Beam, but we didn't have any other real Death spell. So now you have Death Echo, which is basically going to allow you to have a Death rotation. And this hits a 5x5 area, and after a 1 second delay, the same area is hit again for 50% of the initial damage. It's 85 base power. This is a 6-second cooldown spell. However, you get a -2 seconds cooldown in the wheel in the first augment at like level 225. So this very quickly becomes basically a 4-second cooldown spell. So you can cast it every other spell. Very convenient, very comfortable. And yeah, worth mentioning that charms only proc on the first hit, not the second, so you don't get like a double charm proc. Anyway, feels good to use, pretty powerful, much better than Rune, enables a lot of fun rotations. You can cast it on crosshair, cursor position, or below your target, so just like a Rune. Cursor position is going to be the optimal way of using it. However, if you're very lazy, then using it on target is technically still viable, and means you don't have to care for your mouse position, but cursor position will be better. Anyway, this spell is great as well. Really happy with this spell overall. Very nice filler for the death rotation. Moving on, where you have existing spell improvements. Great Death Beam becomes a regular spell that can be learned from level 66. So basically, Great Death Beam is just an energy Death Beam now, just in the death element. So no longer does it benefit from the beam mastery perks in the beam mastery revelation perk in the wheel. It's now has the same length, same cooldown, same damage as the energy death beam. As the great energy beam. Death Beam is exactly the same. It's just a different element. It's just to allow for like slightly better rotations and stuff. And it's available from level 66. So yeah, overall, a fine change too. Lightning, that spell now changed to 2 additional targets. Base power has been increased to 110 and range increased to 7. So this is kind of cool. I now on the test server, the 2 additional targets were receiving subsequently 25 and 50% less damage. So not sure if this is still the case. We're gonna have to test. But if it deals full damage to 3 targets, it's actually a pretty cool spell. You're gonna want to have it on your hotkeys. It's not gonna be like part of a rotation or anything, but it may be a pretty good spell when leveling, for example. Right? I don't remember the exact level this becomes available. I think it's also like 50 or 60. So kind of cool at that point, and also a good finisher. Right? You're kiting, you're killing stuff. You suddenly have 3 targets left on red health. You can just pop this powerful spell, instant chain. Pretty good. Pretty good. But yeah, not going to be a game changer. Then we have ultimate and strong flame and energy strikes, which have had a base power increased and range increased. This is mostly for bossing stuff or PvP. Pretty good changes. No real game changer, but yeah, you will want to likely use the ultimate strikes when you're doing bossing, your boss rotations. In addition to this, we have a new survivability mechanic, which is called Mana Buffer. This is another amazing change that really improves the quality of life of mages, especially solo mages. So the way this works is if incoming damage would exceed current hit points, the overkill amount is multiplied by 8 and subtracted from mana. So just an example. Say you have 500 health and you get hit for 1,000, right? 500 of the damage is taken from your health, and then the overkill amount, which is another 500, gets multiplied by 8, which would be 4,000, and then that is 4,000 damage is subtracted from your mana. So you really want to keep your mana at a high level all the time because you want to use it as like your second HP pool. Now, in addition to this, that alone proved to be too powerful, and sorcerers and mages basically were not dying on the test server. So in addition to this, they've also added an extra penalty of 25% of the character's maximum mana whenever this triggers. However, at most only once every 2 seconds. So to prevent a situation where, you get hit 5 times in a short succession on the mana buffer and you lose 125% of your maximum mana, instead it just takes 25% of the character's maximum mana. Then everything else, is still just multiplied by 5. But then for 2 seconds, you're not going to take this another 25% of character's maximum mana. But that's okay, because in those 25 seconds, you're going to be able to cast Exura Vita a couple of times. You should be able to heal up. So this is still a really, really good change. Probably not going to save you if you get in like some crazy box. If you get, if you're on level 400 and you get yourself boxed in a box of falcons, you're probably still dying. But this will prevent headshots. And this is incredible, really going to allow mages to push their respawn harder and harder, further and further, just because they have this mana buffer, right? Great, great change. Then we have one improvements. Numerous strike and beam limitations have been removed. This I'm going to have to double check what this exactly means. I didn't quite check this on the test server. What I imagine is that more wands will now have the powerful imbuement unlocked. We're going to have to see how this impacts the progression of wands, but probably not really all that relevant for majority of players. Attacks now generate mana instead of consuming mana. So basically, yeah, wands just generate mana. So always use your wand, even if it's like the monsters are like immune to the damage type that you do, and make sure to be attacking, because then at least you'll be generating mana, and the range of wands has been increased. Then we have Wheel of Destiny adjustments. We have special spells, augments. I believe those are basically those strong single target spells, ultimate and strong fire and energy strikes. They have some lower cooldowns and even more base damage, which, by the way, the base damage of these ultimate ones is already 210. Actually, I don't know if those are the special ones. I feel like the special ones may be just as strong. I don't know. I'm going to have to double check this. I'm not entirely sure on the special spells what exactly falls in this category. But anyway, this is the single target spells. You're going to get some cooldown and base damage on them. So maybe good for bossing, but probably not relevant for solo hunting. Then the Death Echo augments. Like I mentioned, you already have the -2 second one, which you will... This is the first augment you will pick up. This is like going to be your go-to wheel to pick up Death Augment 1 as soon as possible, because this enables so many of your rotations now in all those new masteries. So this is the strongest perk in the wheel, probably. And then you also have plus 8% base damage as a second one, which is also pretty good. 8% base damage on your core spell is pretty good, so you will want to pick that one up if you're using Death Echo in your rotation. In addition to this, we have a Beam Mastery rework. Beam now hit adjacent squares for 40, 60, 80% of the initial damage, and increases damage and reduces cooldown based on the amount of targets hit by the central beam, and the side beams also proc charms. This is another amazing change. Beam Mastery has been... beams have fallen out of fashion over the years by a long shot. They've always had high base damages, but one single beam, not very relevant for solo hunting. In team hunting, you could have lined up monsters a little bit, but overall, not very good. Now, you're going to have a free SQM beam. Feels amazing, feels so much better. Really, really good change, especially if you can pick up at least like tier 2 and get that 60% of the initial damage on those side beams. Very, very good. Another like 10 out of 10 change. Actually, this is a 9 out of 10 change. I would have liked it more if this behavior of the adjacent square was just the default behavior of the beam, even from like level 8 or whenever you unlock your first beam, because, I still think this should just be the default free SQM behavior, and then through the beam mastery, you could just increase the damage and get all the other bonuses. But regardless, yeah, 9 out of 10. Then you get a new revelation perk called Lord of Destruction in the bottom left, which replaces Drain Body. And this just improves the buffs provided by the stances. So you get some more base power in the Master of Flames stance. You get some more crit chance in the Master of Thunder stance. And Master of Decay gives you more critical extra damage. Those are okay. I mean, if you can pick up the Lord of Destruction stuff, it's pretty good. But it's nothing like, it's not crazy. Like, none of these bonuses are like, wow, you have to get it, It's not like Combat Mastery in the EK. It's not like, I don't know, it's not like the Empowerment for the Paladin where you have to really get it. Beam Mastery, if you're using beams, is a lot better than Lord of Destruction. So Lord of Destruction is not going to be like the main focus of your build, but if you can pick it up, you probably will. Focus Mastery now additionally reduces the group cooldown of focus spells by 2 seconds. What this means is, like, if you cast UE while you have Focus Mastery allocated, it has a 2-second global cooldown, right? Amazing. Amazing. Really happy with that. Don't have that 4-second global cooldown anymore. Obviously, it's a big investment perk, but very nice change as well. And finally, we have Energy Wave Augment. 1 and 2 have been switched. So Energy Wave 1 now has the affected area enlarged, and the second augment just gets extra 5% base damage to previously instead of 5 is now 10. Again, out of nowhere, really amazing change. It really allows you to have your like full rotation way earlier. Like, your ultimate full rotation is once you have Beam Mastery 1, and once you have this affected area enlarged of the energy wave. Then you have all of your rotations, and I believe the earliest you can do it is at approximately 400, maybe 425 wheel points. So yeah, at approximately level 450 or so, Sorcerer will be able to have like the full size rotation. Very, very good. Really looking forward to it. Anyways, those are the full patch notes. Honestly, I am extremely happy with the patch notes for the Sorcerer. Some great changes here. Good job, Tipsoft. Anyways, now let's dive into the second part of the video. Okay, let's dive into the presentation. So first of all, let's talk about the stances, because this is the biggest impact on the Sorcerer and what basically is making people excited to play the Sorcerer, and is the reason why I'm playing the Sorcerer. So I don't want to go into it too much. Again, I've explained exactly how they work in the patch note review, and honestly, it's pretty self-explanatory once you've played around with those. But yeah, the thing is, I would just like to reiterate that this makes Sorcerer extremely versatile, because you're always going to have a respawn where fire, energy, or death work. Minus like a couple of respawns. In addition to this, you have the sap strength and exposed weakness that are applied automatically. These changes together are amazing, and I'm really happy Tipsoft went this way, because now Sorcerer is finally going to be fun and going to be able to have a nice spell rotation, not have to use runes. Yeah. Again, really happy with those. Don't really want to repeat myself. Works great. Feels great. Good job. To go with this, we have this new spell called Death Echo, which allows you to have this Master of Decay rotation, which otherwise wouldn't be possible because we only had one death spell in the past. And yeah, really good. Feels good to use as well. It's basically a rune. It hits a 5x5 area, which is kind of similar to a rune. It's a little smaller than a rune, and it's like a box instead of a diamond. So it feels a little off sometimes, but it's good. And a 1-second delay as well for 50% of the initial damage for the second hit. Also fairly easy to aim. Overall, great spell as well. I kind of wish it was 4 seconds by default, because it's kind of unusable without the 4-second cooldown, and they're gating it behind tier 1 wheel perk. That is maybe one change I would like to see to it. I would like it to be by default 4-second cooldown, and the augment in the wheel be something a little more interesting. Because yeah, everybody will be getting their minus 2-second cooldown in the wheel when using Death Echo, because otherwise it's kind of unusable and really hard to fit it into their rotation. But anyways, great spell. Really happy with it. And in addition to this, we basically have Lightning, which is basically a new spell as well. Nobody ever really used that, and now it's a free target chain with solid base power, solid range. Yeah, another good change. I don't think this will be like super relevant. I do think this will be potentially good for leveling. I'm going to be leveling up my sorcerer from the beginning, so I'll make sure to try and use this as soon as it becomes available. I'll see how good it is. I do think it's probably going to have a little bit of niche use cases, even though it's probably not going to be like, mid to end game hunting spell or anything like that. But, maybe some use cases, maybe for like finishing a box or something to consider and test out. Tune into the streams and you'll see me using it for sure. So moving on, let's look into like the builds and rotation. So first, I made a few notes that I want to talk about just to mention. First of all, energy spells are most powerful overall. The great energy beam and the death beam as well have very, very high base damage, but also the energy wave has good coverage with their enlarged area and base damage, which means that generally speaking, in most of your rotations, the energy spells form the basis of your rotation as soon as you have beam mastery 1. So beam mastery 1 is what makes the beams wider. Until you get the wide beams, I will probably avoid using the beams. I do not like using a 1 SQM beam, even if it hits very hard. It's not very fun to me. So before level 300, I will probably be using a Death Echo and Great Fire Wave as like the basis of my rotation. In the energy rotation, of course, you still can't do it. In the energy rotation, I would probably go energy wave. This would probably still be my energy rotation even before beam mastery. But once you've got your beam mastery, then you just kind of make your rotations around the energy spells primarily. So worth to mention. Something else that I wanted to mention is that I do find LOD, that's a Lord of Destruction. That is the bottom left revelation perk, kind of underwhelming compared to we've got a misspelling here. Let me correct it because it'll bother me. Underwhelming. There we go. That's better. It's an okay revelation perk, and it's just flat damage increase. And by all means, if you can pick it up, do. But I don't think it's something that you're going to be pathing towards as like the core basis of your build. It's like an afterthought that you'll take if you have the points, but it's nothing really that exciting. So I would have maybe liked to see some changes to Lord of Destruction, a tiny bit, make it a little bit better. And don't focus your build on it. Getting something like Death Echo T2 is actually more valuable than picking up Lord of Destruction if you're using your Death Echo in your build, right? Getting the 8% base damage in Death Echo T2 is always going to be more damage than Lord of Destruction Revelation perk, as long as you're using Death Echo in your rotation, which you probably will be in, definitely in the energy and in the death rotations, maybe not in the fire rotation, depending on what level you are. But anyways, here are the base rotations that I'm envisioning for the sorcerer for level 300 plus once you've got the beam mastery. And this is ignoring any cooldown reductions you may get, because it would get too complicated. Of course, you can have like energy wave cooldown reduction gems, which would change this a bit. You've also got the cooldown reductions from energy beam, where if you hit 2 targets with your energy beam in the middle, you get 2-second cooldown reduction on your spell. So for example, in the energy rotation, if you hit your energy beam into 2 targets, you'll be able to skip this Death Echo and go back to the energy wave because you've shortened the cooldown. But I'm ignoring any cooldown reductions This is like the base rotations that I'm envisioning. So you've got like energy wave, Death Echo, energy beam, Death Echo for the energy rotation. For the fire, you've got the Great Fire Wave, energy wave, energy beam. I would replace the energy wave and the energy beam likely with Death Echo before level 300, before you have the enlarged energy wave and enlarged energy beam. And then it's a very, very comfy rotation. Great Fire Wave and Death Echo is very, very comfy, both 4-second cooldown spells. And the Death rotation becomes probably Death Echo, Energy Wave, Death Echo, Death Beam. There is no need to use the Energy Beam here to convert, because you'd rather be using the Death Beam, which ends up benefiting from the Lord of Destruction as well as the Mastery bonus of critical damage. So this basically becomes your Death rotation. Basically as soon as you want to use a death rotation, right? And worth mentioning, energy wave augments. Keep that in mind. Affected area enlarged is now available much sooner, which you want to pick up very, very quickly, as soon as you can. Together with the beam mastery, you want to pick those up. And basically some fun builds, fun rotations. There will potentially be some places where you want to use runes. I'm not sure where. Places like Fairway, you want to use avalanches. I'm not sure if there are any places where you would prefer using runes over spells. I mean, technically you could conceivably see, for example, sphinxes, right? Sphinxes are like a narrow cave. You could consider doing like Death Echo, Death Beam rune in there potentially, like Death Echo, Death Beam, Death Echo Rune, and not convert another wave or something. I'm not sure. I think my guess is that runes probably won't be used in like 99% of the respawns. Maybe there'll be one or two where it actually works out that it's better to use runes. Not sure. We're gonna have to see. Maybe the base damages of the sorcerer will be nerfed and then runes actually become kind of better. I hope not, but we shall see. Moving on to the multi-action buttons that I'm envisioning. Pretty basic. Those are basically just the new multi-action buttons that you would have for your rotations. They may seem strange at first, but they are designed, especially the energy and death ones. They will end up running like those rotations that I have here, like the energy and death ones here. But they kind of work around the fact that sometimes you might get a cooldown reduction on their beam, sometimes you might not trigger their cooldown reduction on the beam. So we've run the numbers in the Discord, and basically those are their optimal multi-action buttons we've come out with. So yeah, have a look. Obviously, these multi-action buttons are once you have your beam mastery. If you're just using a Great Fire Wave and Death Echo on repeat, then obviously your multi-action button just becomes Great Fire Wave and Death Echo, or vice versa, depending if you're on the Death rotation or the Fire rotation. In addition to this, you may consider using a new multi-action button for bossing. Beams obviously are the strongest spells. If you can land your beam on the boss, still do that. The max strikes with the new 210 base power also should be very good, and you can always finish it off with like an SD as well. Maybe use like a max strike followed by a strong strike. I'm not entirely sure. This is again something that we need to test out and actually do some bosses after the rebalance, but I do think there's probably going to be some multi-action button that you can put together for bossing. So do check in the stream. After a few weeks, I'll probably have an answer for you here. With regards to wheels and gems, I'm working on a tool called tibiapal.com/wheels. It's technically accessible now, but yet not fully functional. So you can check it out after the rebalance. I'll make sure to update it properly within like a day or two after the rebalance. And I have obviously a few wheels here for each mastery, for example, what you may want to go for each mastery. I also have mentioned which gems I think are best. Right now, I think all the energy, the beam base damages are good. The Great Fire Wave may be good, but that one is very niche for the fire rotation. You don't really want to use the Great Fire Wave in non-fire rotations. UE base damage still good. Beam mastery is going to be pretty good. That is your best revelation perk by far. If you can pick that up, that potentially opens up some areas where you can get a higher beam mastery bonus, or you can pick it up without having to go into that quadrant if you wanted. I'm not sure if that is really that relevant, but anyway, those are all probably pretty good. I'll keep this updated obviously as we go, and if you have any suggestions with the wheels or with some better gems, do let me know as well. I'll be happy to keep this tool updated. And finally, let's just move on to my final thoughts. And like I said, before I go into this, I honestly love the changes to the Sorcerer. I'm so happy with the changes to the Sorcerer. And this is totally discounting the power level, okay? I don't know how strong the Sorcerer will be after the rebalance. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty strong. So I also have a feeling that, we may get some balance forced upon us over some time. But discounting that, I'm just very, very happy with the quality of life and functional changes that we get. And the mana buffer, excellent to prevent headshots for solo hunting. Masteries, excellent, means you don't have to use runes, means you're very versatile. You can use spell rotations, very easy with the curse debuff stances, very, very good. You get the wider beams, so beams are kind of solved. Death Echo is a good spell. No longer you need to UH and team hunts, which was a major pain in the ass. This I forgot to delete. This was supposed to be for Paladin. I do apologize. So yeah, overall, amazing changes. And even like the changes to the single target spells, they were not necessary, but kind of improved bossing and stuff. So yeah, very, very happy. I think Sorcerer is going to be very fun for solo, very easy for team hunt. I mean, this is going to be like the ultimate DPS team hunt invocation, right? All you're doing is you're just DPSing the hell out of all the monsters, the pure DPS vocation, right? You're not healing anybody. You're no longer casting debuffs. You're literally standing there. You have to have a perfect optimized rotation, deal tons of damage. Should be very fun. I'm really looking forward to trying out team hunting as a Sorcerer as well. But let's mention some underwhelming as well. So I think the special spells are cool, especially the lightning. However, the wheel augments require a little bit too much investment to actually be relevant for like early game when I think it would be the most valuable. So this is the 4-second cooldown reduction to the special spells, which I thought would be really cool for like a low level to use lightning, that free target chain. But you actually need like level 250 or something before you get it. So it's a little bit of a shame. I would have liked to maybe be able to access those perks a little bit easier somehow. I don't know. Another thing that I would have liked to see is waves on cursor. This was very much requested on the test server. So basically now we can cast runes and death echo and a lot of other abilities for other vocations on cursor. And we would have liked to be able to cast waves on cursor. So the way this would work is obviously that you would point somewhere with your mouse. The game would read where your mouse is, and it would fire the wave, your beam or wave in that direction. Just how the auto aim or aim at target works, but instead of it being the target, it would take, your mouse position as the source, as the target where you should fire your wave. That would have made, waving and beaming a lot more comfortable as well. Maybe they just didn't get around to it. Maybe we'll get it in the summer update. Maybe we'll get it in the winter update. That would be a very nice quality of life and comfort feature as well. But regardless, the changes we've gotten already are plenty. So hopefully they'll get to that at some point in the future. Another point is that Runic Mastery is honestly pretty dead. I do think it probably needs a rework. I do not see anybody ever going into that quadrant. Gift of Life, not much needed for once we have Buffer. Runic Mastery, you're never really using runes. I don't know. I don't really think that you would ever be using it. So, yeah, I think Runic Mastery and just that Gift of Life quadrant probably needs a little bit of a rework because I think it's going to be pretty much dead. And I do think that the Beam Mastery 3 SQM behavior should be the default for beams. Like, nobody wants to use a 1 SQM beam. I think the change that they should have done in the rebalance is just make all beams by default 3 SQMs. And you know how they have, hang on, where do we have it? Find it. Beam Mastery now deals 40, 60, 80% of the initial damage. They should have just made it so that maybe the default beams do 20%, right? That you unlock your beam at level 38 and it's free SQM and the side beams deal 20% of the initial damage or something. But just so that the behavior and the functionality was the same from start. I don't like gating functionality, necessary functionality behind the wheel. So I would have liked that to be done a little bit differently. Nevertheless, you get the revelation perk at like level 300. It's not that big of an investment. You get it pretty quickly, and then you've got functional beams. So whatever. Anyways, overall, as I was saying, absolutely love the sorcerer changes overall. Very, very happy with the changes. Again, another shout out to Tipsoft for this vocation because I really think they've done a good job. It's probably my favorite changes out of all the vocations. And again, this is discounting the power level. I don't actually know how like high level sorcerer will do in team hunts or solo or whatever. I don't care, right? I think the balancing will figure itself out over time. I'm focusing on the functional changes like the masteries, the debuffs, the mana buffer, all of which I love and I'm very happy. And if you want to follow my sorcerer journey, make sure to tune in when the rebalance launches. I'll be playing a lot, streaming a lot. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully see you there. Let me know what you guys think about the sorcerer. And yeah, let me know if you agree, disagree, whatever. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.